used for over 40 years. And the fact is that there are a lot of people walking around today who have been programmed with hypnosis and have absolutely no idea that they have been. And once the Secret Service is busted, once they are exposed for their crimes, a lot of that's going to come out. But even then, I don't know how many of the actual abuses are going to ever come to light, because there's no evidence except for in the people that have been hypnotized. And if they don't know that they've been hypnotized, they're not going to know that they need to visit a forensic hypnotist and have that hypnosis detected and removed.
Deprogrammed.
Exactly. And it can be done. It is absolutely possible to detect when hypnosis has been misused on someone. It's a time-consuming process, and it's not always 100% effective at detecting all of it. But it is possible for a professional hypnosis expert to go in and dredge out not only that hypnosis has been used on someone, but also what it's been used on them for. And, you know, it's a very tricky process, but it has been used in the past, mostly by police authorities who suspected that someone had acted under the influence of hypnosis. And that also brings up another interesting point, is that in 1968, when Sirhan shot Bobby Kennedy, he claimed that he had no knowledge or intent of that assassination, and that he had acted under the influence of hypnosis. And the courts have refused so far to entertain that as a defense. And 1968 is 5 years after John F. Kennedy was assassinated, and well within the time period that the Secret Service was very, very interested in those technologies. I was born in 1966, and my biological father began to abuse my mother shortly after I was born. And strangely enough, every single time, and this is something that my mother will absolutely verify, every single time my biological father started to abuse my mother, I would fall asleep. Inexplicably, I would stop being awake. And that, to me, is a remarkable event until you consider that my biological father was abusing my mother because of the Secret Service forcing him to do that. Now, I don't know who it was that was working for the agency, but they probably had some sympathy for a newborn. And as all of the victims of directed energy weapons know, there is a frequency of RF radiation that can almost instantaneously make people so fatigued that they very nearly fall asleep. And I don't know if you've experienced
Oh, yes, all the time. All the time.
Frequently when I'm driving.
Well, they're trying to cause you to have an accident. They want you to have an accident.
Well, actually, I think it's more that they're trying to figure out just how tired it can make someone. But I've had to pull over and take a nap.
Oh, sure.
It's been been that serious. And all of the victims should consider that every single one of the devices that are being misused on them, the Secret Service is concerned about those devices being used against the agents. And so they're trying to figure out exactly how effective those devices are at degrading or eliminating the agent's ability to do their jobs. So every time one of us is attacked, we should think about how that attack would relate to what someone might try and do to a Secret Service agent while he's protecting someone. And then the whole thing kind of makes a certain amount of sense at that point in time. I'm not saying that it makes sense that, that what they're doing is right. I'm saying that it makes sense about how and why they came into possession of that technology. And it explains all of it. And it's amazing that it opens a door that is just so enlightening and so refreshing, because in the beginning you're so confused, you're so ignorant of what's going on, and the Secret Service is throwing out all these explanations. They're God, they're aliens, and people are believing it at least 20 or 30% of the time.
I think people are starting to wake up, though, because I've really gone over the internet. I surf the internet, and there's so many things that are coming forward, so it is a good thing.
Oh, yeah. Mm-hmm. Well, and I got to tell you, the internet is going to be the end of them. And the reason is because when people can communicate intelligently about things, that collaboration is tremendously powerful. It's basically, the internet it's still putting out a lot of misinformation, because that's what the feds are causing, but it's also making available a lot of accurate information, a lot of very important, very technically accurate information. Things like, Aaron Avalos helps me out sometimes by sending information up to a bunch of the TIs, and he distributed copies of my lawsuit, and that contains the actual evidence of the agency's perjury, and it contains an explanation of how and why the agency possesses and uses the devices. It's got enormous potential. The internet has enormous potential to help us end this.
What about other agencies like the CIA? Why just the Secret Service with you? I hear so many different agencies are involved. I hear about conspiracy theories.
Well,
people have the CIA. I know
people have this expectation that if the government's doing something wrong, it's got to be the CIA. And I got to tell you, that's probably the most overused misconception in the history of the U.S. government. It just isn't so. I'm not saying the CIA doesn't have and use directed energy weapons, but I know for a fact that the ones being used on me were specifically developed for protective purposes. The arsenal that the Secret Service has is very, very protective mission specific. And it's something that I mentioned in my lawsuit. The collection of technologies that have been misused on me provide what amounts to a fingerprint that can be identified specifically as the Secret Service. And it's because they're the only agency that has this specific array of weapons. And there are other agencies that have an interest in directed energy weapons. The military, of course,